Hello folks and welcome to Weekly Waffle episode 2, the Sunday morning show where we're all about getting a conversation started and taking to the comments in the video to talk about a particular thing that might have been interesting in the hobby this week or just something I've maybe been thinking about in the hobby this week. Today I want to talk specifically about game design, and it's a topic that's been on my mind a lot recently for reasons that will be disclosed sooner or later, but right now I can't talk about. However, I particularly wanted to talk about game design because the idea of objective good and bad game design is something that's actually pretty difficult to get a handle on. So I was thinking about this with reference to 40k, for example, recently, and it's not the only game I've been thinking about, but I want to talk about 40k because everyone's played it or they have an idea about it, they know a fair bit about it. It's a really good baseline for discussing a topic like this. And the thing that's interesting about 40k is it's the most popular miniatures game, yet it has a lot of elements that I personally consider to be really bad game design. Chief among these, the ones that particularly are bugbears for me personally, I think you roll dice too often in 40k. That's a big problem. I really wish that... I feel like if you flood the game with too many die rolls, each individual die roll feels less meaningful and it makes the game less fun, less engaging. I'm less incentivized to be immersed in the game because I'm constantly stopping play to roll dice. And I feel like 40k is particularly bad for that. It's a game where you just roll so many dice. I feel like the rules are spread out too much over too many books. Some armies, you need like 5 books to play these days. And that's ridiculous, especially when these books are 25, 30 quid each, or, you know, in the case of the big rule book, could be as much as 50 quid. That's too much for me. I don't like the rules being in so many different locations that, and the responsibility being on the player to pull all those locations together into a centralised way so that they can build an army and play that army effectively. That's an extra step of research and hoop jumping that is really unattractive to me. And the other thing that I really am super keen on with 40k, and I know this sounds like quite a negative discussion up to this point, but it's not going to stay that way, I assure you, so do bear with me. The other thing that I'm really not keen on with 40k is the frequency of FAQs and the existence of FAQs in a game that relies on paper books to distribute its rules. With games that are where the rules are distributed digitally or made available digitally for free, you know, the complete rules. I know obviously 40k's core rules are available free, but you can't play a game with just the core rules. You need all the faction rules and stuff. In a world where you use books to distribute your rules, constantly FAQing a game is, in my opinion, really bad for that game. And it's not helpful to the player base, and it's not helpful to the game itself for longevity. More and more people that are getting out of 40k, more and more people, and obviously we, you know, for various reasons, we know that there's a lot of reasons people are jumping ship from 40k at the moment, but invariably one of the big popular reasons that's cited a lot is that the constant nerfing of factions, buffing of factions, what competitive people actually like as a meta shift is actually something that a lot of casual players really don't like, and that's why they're moving away from the game. And obviously, you know, all of these things, it's about striking balance, and they may need a little bit more time to get the balance right this edition of how often they tweak and stuff, and there's various different arguments for it. These are just things that I personally feel make the game less attractive to me. But this then led me on to further thoughts on the subject, and this is where it gets interesting, is I started to realise if this is the most popular war game on the planet, which it definitely is, it's absolutely the most popular miniatures game on the planet, what I view as good or bad, those can't be objective. They cannot possibly be objective. They can only be my personal tastes, because if the things that I think are bad game design, and to me they're, you know, they are super unattractive elements of 40k. If they were objective points, it couldn't also be the most popular game on the planet, because what it's telling us is that taste plays a role, and obviously a lot of people are either not bothered by those things or they consider them to be good. It must be one or the other. It can only be one or the other. Because if everybody agreed with me, those are terrible rules, no one would play the game, let alone it certainly wouldn't be the most popular game. But that's what makes it an interesting question, I think. In a world where we understand that an individual's views on game design, it's almost impossible for them to be objective. And in fact, the only way we can get anything close to objective is through consensus. And so the questions that I want to ask are to do with that, like what you think is good and bad in rules design. And pondering this, and again, the reasons why I'm pondering this will become clear down the line. At the moment, it might seem a bit weird. Why are you spending so much time thinking about game design? But more will come out about that later. But this is, spending the week kind of thinking about this has made me realise that my individual tastes are actually probably quite contrary to the majority of popular tastes. I mean, for example, my favourite miniatures game is Infinity. I adore it, it's perfect for me. But Infinity has a reputation for being massively over-complex. A lot of people really don't like how complex it is. And as a result of that, it's certainly nowhere near as popular as a game like Warhammer 40k. That's interesting because if that's perfect for me, and the criticism that's levelled against it, you know, people saying things like it's super complex, I actually find it really simple. I find it really easy to pick up Infinity. I do think there's a linear path of progression that you should follow as you're learning the rules. I think if you try to jump in straight at full fat N4, playing sectorials, that's going to be a nightmare. And I think most people will struggle with that. But I think if you follow a linear path of progression through Code 1, Master Code 1, start a very simple vanilla army in N4, get good at that, then build a sectorial army in N4, etc, 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 then I actually think that it's just a case of adding more rules knowledge, and that's, compared to 40k, pretty straightforward, pretty easy. You know, we're used to having to memorise a lot of rules with games like Magic the Gathering and 40k, which are two games I've played a lot of. And so for me, I don't find that skill of memorising a lot of individual rules difficult. It's just how complex those rules are in a vacuum, and Infinities are very simple to me. So this leads me to conclude that it's almost impossible to be objective about game design. And that's really interesting because we talk about things, and I do it as well, and it's something I'm really going to start trying not to do. But we talk about these things in terms of good and bad, as if we can make objective assessments, but I don't necessarily think we can. And I think perhaps instead we should start trying to talk about war games more in terms of what we like and dislike, because I think through consensus, if enough people like or dislike the same things, companies are able to analyse that and adjust. Whereas when we try to be objective, what comes under scrutiny is not the information we're giving, the feedback that we're giving, it's whether or not we're qualified to give it, because we're trying to give it as if it's an objective assessment. And an objective assessment is something you really have to be qualified in order to provide. Your opinion, on the other hand, isn't. Everyone's allowed an opinion, and expressing that opinion is a useful way for companies to decide direction and to make changes. So if we talk more about our tastes and own those as our individual likes and dislikes, we empower companies to actually better analyse our information and understand it contextually and make implementations for changes that actually work for us and benefit us. And I think that's great. I think that's something we should be aiming for as a miniature wargaming community. So I'm personally really trying to rein in acting like I'm being objective when I am definitely talking about my subjective thoughts, feelings and opinions. And I'm trying to be much clearer at expressing that, because I don't hate any of the games that I don't enjoy playing. I just don't like them. I don't like playing them. I don't like the act of playing them. And not liking something doesn't automatically mean you have an active dislike or hatred for it. And I think it's important to manage those feelings and manage how you put them out. So that's something that I'm trying to develop. So as we're coming towards the end now, we've got to get to the question. We've got to talk about the actual question itself. We've done the waffle, we know the topic, we know what we want to talk about. So what do I actually want from you in the comments this week? And that is to talk to me about game design. Tell me what you like or dislike in game design. Tell me what you think is good or bad in game design, but also tell me why. And I'd really love to know, what's your favourite and least favourite war games that you've played? What war game did you play once or twice and will never go back to? What war game do you find yourself constantly craving and you always want to play it? What is to me Infinity? So those are the questions this week. What do you like and dislike? What do you think is good and bad? What are your favourite and least favourite war games? I hope you found the waffle interesting, entertaining. I know it's a lot of words in a short space of time. That's kind of the point of a waffle, so I hope you liked that. And I will be back next week with another one. So thank you so much for watching, folks. And I will see you in the next one. Main video coming out Wednesday this week. We're going to be talking about painting black. Bye for now, folks.